Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I hope that you are doing well. You're keeping well. Did you have a good weekend? What did you get up to? How was your Sunday? I just had a really great weekend. I really just had the best time. It was Leo's. Well, it's not yet. It's Leo's birthday tomorrow, and so we went to a swimming pool which we hired. I think it was Layla actually, if she's on today, who recommended this to us. We hired out a swimming pool for just 6 people. You get the pool to yourself, and so we spent Sunday afternoon, early evening in the swimming pool, just having so much fun. We had a fantastic weekend. How was your weekend? What did you get up to? Did you do anything extraordinary, anything unusual? Was it normal, or how did things go? Let me know how your weekend was. It's really good to be back this Monday morning, kicking off this week, looking at the book of Galatians and seeing what it says to us. I'm trying to really cut out a lot of my my just chatter at the beginning and trying to get into this faster so that we can be a bit more focused and aware. People have work and different things that they're trying to get to. Are you? Oh, okay. Christina, you saying you had a quiet weekend? I thought you were saying I was being quiet for a second. I panicked. Oh, Jacqueline, you were in isolation. No, did you have symptoms, I guess? Well, I hope that even though you're in isolation, that you're finding some joy and some fun and some goodness within it. It's not fun when you're stuck. And we had our eldest Cole. He had a cough, and he was then told he couldn't go into school, and he had to isolate until he could get a COVID test. And it's frustrating. Well, I'm gonna pray, and then I'm gonna jump into this text and just share a few thoughts with you all. So let's start by just giving this time to God. Lord Jesus, we want to give you this time. We want to really bring you to the center, or maybe even we want to recognize that you are already in the center. We want to reorient ourselves this morning back to you. Let this be our computer reset. We want to start by putting you in the center. Speak to us, unpack this passage, show us where this can heal us and can challenge us. And Lord, speak to us today through these words. Amen. So the passage that we are looking at is Galatians 6, 1 through 5. If you have a Bible with you, I always recommend reading it. I don't know about you. I'm not as good a listener as I am a reader. I find I take in information far better when I read. And I know different people are different, but I'd still encourage you to do both, listen and read, and then you're going to get the best of both worlds. This is what it says. It says, brothers and sisters, if someone's caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. So the question that Paul is dealing with kind of flows off the back of what he's been talking over the last few days with us about. And that's, how do you help someone who messes up? If someone is struggling with sin, if somebody has fallen down, they've done something wrong, they've messed up, what do we do with that? And I think it's something that we struggle with. I find that I don't know what to do with it a lot of the time. I think a lot of people don't really know what to do when they see somebody whose behavior has gone out of sync with their beliefs. We find it hard, right? I think that there's 2 general approaches that we have for this. Number 1 is live and let live. I'm not going to get involved in their life. They can have their life. I'll have my life. I just live and let live. And there's a number of problems with this. The first is, a lot of the time this flows not out of a desire to help them, but out of a desire to not be judged ourselves. A word like, if we correct somebody else, or if we help somebody else, somebody might look at our life and tell us, well, we've gone wrong, and we don't want that. And so we don't judge, not because we believe that there isn't something wrong, but because we don't want to be judged. And so that kind of comes from, I think, a heart of pride, or a heart of not wanting other people to criticize us. And that's not a good reason to just let somebody be in trouble. The second reason why I think we sometimes do live and let live is because we're so busy. There's so much going on in life. There's so many issues. And so we're like, hey, I just don't have the time to really help you with this. Or maybe if you really were to dig down a little bit deeper, the answer is, you see somebody, they're tripping up, they're struggling, they're making mistakes, they're hurting people around them, and you're just like, I just don't really care. If I'm really, really deeply honest, I don't care about them. And I know that makes me a bad person, but maybe that's the truth. Maybe you don't care about them, and so you like, just let them get on with it. Or maybe you don't think they have the character to receive help, or maybe it's that you don't have the relationship. There's all these reasons why I think that we just let people get on with their lives, and we don't step in and we don't help them. And the other way that people might approach this is the opposite. Instead of just live and let live, that they're more like, I'm gonna point this out. I'm gonna tell you exactly where you're going wrong. And we all have those people around us in our lives, the ones who point the finger, the ones who always want to criticize you, who always want to tell you everything that's messed up, everything that's wrong. And those aren't nice people to have in your life either. And we don't want to be those people. And we also don't want to be these passive live and let lives. And that kind of leaves a couple of other options. One is the tell it about them behind their backs, where we see something's wrong, we don't tell them, but we tell everybody else. And that's maybe the third way that I think we deal with this badly. When somebody's struggling, when someone's messing up, we can't be bothered, or we don't have the time, or we don't have the relationship to help them. We don't want to be a finger pointer either. So we go down the pub and we tell everybody about what they've been doing. We stick it on Facebook. Can you believe what so-and-so is? Or an anonymous post. I'm not going to tell you who this was, but everyone can guess, by the way. And really, I think that we have this issue where we don't really know how to help people well. Most of the time, we don't know how to call it out. We don't know how to help them. We don't know how to approach them. And Paul gives us two key words here. He says, number one, if someone is caught in sin, you should restore them. So we can't be passive. We can't just kind of say, let them get on with their life. He's like, restore them, try and help them, like get involved, be involved in their life, restore them. And then he also says the second word, with gentleness, restore people gently. And I think that this is an art. I think that this is something that we're not good at. And I think that the reason why we're not very good at this is actually because we are too involved. The word restore here is actually taken from a word meaning, like, it's like a medical term. It's like resetting a shoulder, or you could use it in fishing. The same word would be to sew nets back together. So if a net was broken, it's like you would sew it back together. The word isn't judge, it's not condemn, it's not attack, it's not punish. It's someone's messing up, someone's doing something that you see is hurting them, and it's hurting other people. He says, restore them, help to repair them, bring them back to healing, bring them back to health, bring them back to life. How do we do this? Why do we not do this? And really, the rest of this passage, I think, is the reason why this goes so wrong. And so if I was going to summarize this whole passage that we read about bearing one another's burdens as being about one thing, I think it's about pride. And maybe that surprises you. Maybe you're like, well, I thought this was about community. I thought that this was about helping each other. But actually, the root behind all of the problems that we experience in our community is actually Pride is this strange topic. I think it's one of those things that we don't talk about in culture. Well, at least not in a negative way. Whenever we talk about it in culture, it's like pride is the best thing. We should have pride. You do you, live your life, live right. Every day counts, and we celebrate pride. We celebrate individualism. If it's happy, if it's fulfilling you, fight for your dreams, be who you want to be. All of these kind of things. It's like we love pride and we celebrate pride, but the Bible doesn't. The Bible talks against pride. Proverbs 16 verse 18 says, pride leads to destructionness and haughtiness to a fool. And the Message says it's something like, first pride, then the crash. The bigger the ego, the harder the fall. I always laugh a little bit when I read this verse because it reminds me of my mate Terry. Once me and Terry were riding our bikes through town centre, and as we're riding along, Terry saw these girls on the side, and he shouts out, "Oi, oi, ladies," and kind of goes no hands and starts waving at them. And just as they turn around to see him, he went straight into a lamppost and just decked on the floor in front of everybody. And that's a beautiful picture of pride, but that's not exactly what this verse is talking about. It's not saying, if you shout out and make everyone see you, you're going to fall on your face. It's not saying don't push out. It's not saying don't step onto platforms. It's not saying don't be heard. It's more talking about this quiet voice inside of us that wants to make everything about us. What's going to be best for me? How am I going to look right in this situation? How is this going to serve me? It's the voice that just goes, me. And it's really a hard attitude to identify in other people because it can look completely different in different situations. One person wants to be seen by everybody, and that's what pride looks like. The next person wants to hide from the spotlights. They don't want anyone to see them because they're worried what everyone will think about them. Both are the same spirit, acted out in different ways. One person has to help everybody all the time, serve, but it's because it's all about them. Another person can't help. They won't serve you because they're too important. It's the same spirit acted out in different ways. Pride isn't about what you do. It's about why you're doing it. It's a problem of the heart. And I think that this is it's a snare, and it prevents freedom, it prevents growth. It stops you from becoming who you want to be. It stops healing from happening. Like the other day, well, not the other day, this is a long time ago, but like so many times I've been in prayer meetings and somebody said, come to the front if you want prayer for something. And my heart's beating. I'm like, yeah, I need healing here. I need help here. I need prayer. And then the voice comes in my head straight away, what will people think? Do you want people to know that you're not strong in this? Do you not want people to know that you haven't got it all together all the time? Do you want people to know that this is a problem for you? And this pride kicks in and it prevents me from getting healing. It prevents me from changing, from growing, from being freed. And so pride is actually, I think, one of the key problems that stands behind the lack of holiness or the lack of fulfillment that we experience. We worry we're going to miss out, we're going to be unloved, we're going to be disrespected, we're going to fail. And these words that we tell ourselves, they're lies. They're lies. And when they are at the center of our lives, that it shapes every room that we walk into, it shapes every relationship that we have, and it prevents us from being a helper or receiving help. And I think that one of the problems is that we don't recognize the power that there is in humility. Humility is the key to growth. Humility is the key to healing. Humility is the key to leadership. Humility is the key to freedom. If this whole book that we've been reading, Galatians, is about freedom, at its center, Paul is trying to teach us the power of humility. Faith starts the moment we say, I can't do this. I don't have it all together. I need help. I need Jesus. It is when we step back and say, it's all about you, God. It's all about you. We don't recognize the impact that humility has in our lives. And I think that it's because we think of humility as being like, I don't know, we think about that person who like beats themselves up all the time, puts themselves down, and like, oh, like you say, oh, great job this morning. Oh, it wasn't me, it was just Jesus. like I wasn't there. Well, you were there, you had a part to play. Oh man, thank you for help. Oh, don't thank me. It's nothing. Like we think of humility as being like that, like self-deprecation. I get this voice again sometimes when it's like I'm talking to people and we're talking about Soul City, and I'm like, oh man, Soul City, we're not going to be a church. Like don't mistake us. We're not a church for Stockport. We're a church that's bursting out from Stockport. We're going to be planting churches. I see networks. I see movements. I see thousands of people coming and meeting Jesus for the first time. When we're not in this to try and do something small here, we want to make an impact. And so we're going to reach all of these people and do all of these things. And as I talk about vision and I talk about our passion, so often it's like straight away something inside of me says, who do you think you are? Like who do you think you are that God would do big things through you? Who do you think that you are? That you're going to try and reach lots of people or lead people in this way? Who you need to be more humble. You need to think less of yourself. And it's because we don't understand what humility is. We think that humility is putting ourselves down, but humility isn't having no vision. Proverbs says that the righteous are bold as lions. Humility should mean that we push in more, that we speak up more, that we try and reach more people, because it was never about us in the first place. Humility is the voice that says, it's not about me, and so I have to help other people. I have to reach people. I'm not going to have a small vision that is based on my life. I can have a big vision because I know that it's not about me. It's about Jesus. Humility leads. It's the key to power. It's the key to courage. It's the key to impact. I think it's C.S. Lewis who said, humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. When we get out of our own heads, when we stop thinking about ourselves all the time, this is when we get to speak into other people's lives. We get to help them. We get to bring healing. We get to bring freedom in them. And this is really what this whole passage is about. It's all about humility. And so let me just read this next bit again. It says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks that there's someone when they're not, they deceive themselves. Don't think too highly about yourselves. Don't think too lowly about yourselves. Each should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to one another. For each one should carry their own load. I've got just a couple of observations I want to draw from this. As I'm drinking my coffee, as I'm sure you are as well. Number one, the law of Christ is fulfilled through humility. The law of Christ. What's the law of Christ? The law of Christ is to love God and to love people. He summarizes the entire law in this. Paul has this incredible, radical interpretation of this. And he says that one of the ways, like this isn't the fullest fulfillment, but one of the ways that we fulfill what Jesus is telling us is when we look at the people around us, the people we're in relationship, the people who we're in community with, and we bear one another's burdens. We look out for each other. We don't spend our time thinking about ourselves. We don't say, hey, what's going to be best for me in this situation? We don't turn up at church or small group when we're allowed to do that, and when they're open. We don't sit at home saying, why is no one calling me? We ask the question, who can I call? Who can I help? Who can I look after? And it's not legalism. Legalism has no interest in bearing each other's burdens. The law of Christ isn't judgment. It's not making people feel bad. It's about lifting. It's about restoring. And that requires humility. Jesus says, come to me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in my heart, and you shall find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my load is light. You see, when people are struggling, what they don't need is to be beaten up. What they needed is to be lifted up. Jesus says, my yoke is easy. I think that when it's not about us, it's not about us feeling superior. It's not about us feeling important. It's not about us being right and them being wrong. When we realize that it's about restoration, then we approach things in a different way. I think that we need to point people away from religion. We point people away from pride, and we lead them back to Jesus. You're not going to be the person who restores them. You're not going to be the person who makes it all right. Don't get lost and caught up in this. You don't have all the answers, and you don't need to have all the answers. All you need to have is Jesus. I used to have an alarm on my phone, love people better. Like every day I'd wake up and it'd pop up, love people better today. And I'd try so hard to love people better, but I didn't really know how. I'd smile more. And Jesus is like, this is really practical and easy. Look for opportunities to help carry one another's burdens. Think about when you're in a situation, not what am I trying to get out of this argument, but how can I help them get what they need out of this situation? How can I help them get what it is that they've been looking for? And I believe that as you do that, not only do you fulfill the law of Christ, but actually Jesus looks after you and he looks out for you. He blesses. In Matthew 5, it says, blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the humble. Blessed are those who recognize that they've not got it all for themselves and who are looking out for other people. I think that those are the people that Jesus is really looking out for. So the first observation is the law of Christ, I believe, is only fulfilled through humility. The second observation is that there seems to be a contradiction in this passage. And I just want to talk into this because the contradiction, the only way to really understand this is when you understand that the problem is pride and humility. On the one hand, Paul starts off and he says in verse 2, carry each other's burdens. So we need to carry one another's burdens. And then at the end, he says, carry your own load. So which is it, Paul? Are we supposed to carry each other's burdens? Are we supposed to be looking out for each other and carrying their stuff? Or are we supposed to be carrying our own load? Should it be we all look after ourselves, leave each other alone? Or should it be that we're all looking out for each other? There's a contradiction here. How do we understand this, Paul? It doesn't make any sense. I think that to really understand it, the first thing that we need to do is to recognize that there's two different words that he's using here. The first is baros, bear one another's baros, burdens. This is like a really heavy weight, but it describes a weight which is too difficult, too heavy to carry on your own. It's like a millstone pulling you down. It's too much. And so he's like, we need to carry each other's baroses, like bear one another's boulders, like. And then the second word is portion, which it's actually portion. It's like a cargo. It's like it would describe the bag. If you're hiking and you have a bag on your back, it would describe that as something that is yours to carry. So we carry each other's burdens, but we also carry our own load. And it's like, I think he's trying to say, don't mix these things up. There are some things in life that we need to share, and there are some things in life which we need to carry ourselves. And often we do it the wrong way. The things that we should be sharing and getting help with, we hide away, and we're like, we don't want people to see that. And so we end up carrying this thing which we can't carry on our own. And then there's little things that we should just deal with, and yet we can't, and we give them and we share them to everyone else. And so as I was thinking about this morning, I think that there's 4 different types of people when it comes to this. When it comes to burdens and loads, there's 4 different types of people. And I'm just going to share through them, and then I'm going to share what I think that this really should look like. So the first is a burden taker. This is somebody who sees somebody else's burden, like burden being the heavy one. And then they go to them and they come and they want to help. and they take the load away from them and carry it themselves. Like I don't know, there's somebody who's struggling with debt, and so you just go and you're like, hey, I'm just going to pay all your debt, which sounds amazing. It's like, I'm going to take that debt myself, and now I'm going to carry your burden for you. Or there's a relationship problem. They're like, okay, don't worry about it. I've got this. I'm going to sort this out for you. Somebody has a responsibility. Don't worry. I'm going to take the responsibility off you and take it for myself. And what we end up doing is then we find ourselves weighed down by a burden that wasn't even meant to be ours, and somebody else is free. They've given you their burden. They're now happy, and you can come away from a conversation with somebody suddenly overloaded with something that was never meant for you to carry in the first place. And I think that a lot of people, we find ourselves as burden takers, and there's problems with this. Number one, that person has never learned how to deal with that problem. You're now carrying them. That's not helpful for them. Number two, you've placed yourself in an unhelpful position in their lives. Some people love to be needed. We love to help people, and what we do is we try to become Christ for them. This is a problem with lots of churches. You get leaders who are really pastoral, and they try to become what only Jesus can be in somebody else's life. Like, I'm not going to be somebody who you can give all your burdens to. I'm just a man. I'm not even like, I'm not that strong. And so I recognize I can't be a burden taker, because it will weigh me down, and it won't help you with that burden either, because you'll keep on going back to the same situation. Paul doesn't say take their burden away from them, because it doesn't help them. Second thing that I think people do in this situation is they become burden instructors. Oh, I see you have a burden. Let me help you. What you should do is go there, fix that. There's a course for this. Sign up over there. And these are people who can see the problem. They can see what's wrong in people, but they don't want to help. And I think that both of these two are problems of pride. The first person, they overhelp because it's all about them. The other person, they underhelp because they're too important, they're too busy, they've got too much else that's going on, and so they just think that it's enough to give you, oh, I see some mess there, I'm just going to let you know that there's mess there so that you can deal with it. They're burden instructors. Paul doesn't say be a burden pointer outer. Don't go around saying, hey, I see you've got an issue with this, thank you, I told you, now go deal with it. He doesn't say that. He doesn't say be a burden pointer outer. So don't be a burden taker, don't be a burden instructor. The third thing I think that a lot of us are burden givers. Rather than being somebody who bears people's burdens, we don't carry our own. We seek out other people and we burden them. Irresponsible people, they find other people and they burden them, and they'll even call it love, they'll call it community. Hey, could you wake me up for work? Hey, could you pick me up and drive me to the prayer meeting to make sure that I get there on time? Hey, I've got a kid who's struggling. Could you come and help them and deal with them? And what they do is they look at all the problems in their lives and they try and give them away. They try and get somebody else to take responsibility for them. And these are the people, I think, who are always making excuses. Well, it wasn't my fault. It was James's fault. I wanted to be at the meeting, but he didn't pick me up. Or I wanted to help with this, but my work let me down, or something. And they never take responsibility for themselves. I sometimes joke that there's people who say they want to change the world, but they can't find their own car keys. A lot of the time it's worse to make big promises, to say you're going to help, carry someone's burden, and then to just not turn up. It feels even heavier when you're expecting somebody to be alongside you. These people are damaging, and they hurt to let people down like that. Don't make promises you can't fulfill. Don't have good talk and then low helping out. Take responsibility for your own life, your own loads. get your life in order so that you can actually be a blessing, so that people can rely on you, so that you can be faithful. We so often miss out on what it means to live a full life, to impact people, because we're flaky and we haven't taken the time to soberly look at our own lives and say, have I got my own house in order? I'm not talking about people who are sick and can't make things. I'm not talking about people who are genuinely struggling with things. These are the little loads that we should be carrying ourselves. We should have the discipline to get our lives in order, to have our own Bible study, to have our own prayer life, to be able to have our own strength of faith, so that we have a platform to serve and to reach the people who live around you. They need you. And so we need to be healthy. We need to be responsible. We need to carry our own load so that we can help each other's burdens. So don't be a burden taker. Don't be a burden pointer outer. And finally, don't be a burden giver. Instead, we need to be burden bearers. And the key word here is bearer. It's somebody who shares the load. Think about it as like two ox that are walking side by side. When we see people who are struggling, we don't condemn. We walk alongside them. We put our arm around them, and we bring them back to Jesus. We lead them to Jesus. We don't just point them to Jesus and say, hey, look, Jesus is over there, go deal with this. We walk with them back to Jesus. This is faithful, this is kind, this is committed, this is non-judgment, this is gentle, and this is humble. This is saying, I value you, and I will walk alongside you, and I'm going to help you to be restored. I want to invest in you. I want to see you flourish. I want to see you come to life. Let's be burden bearers. Let's be humble. Let's not get lost in everything that's going on in ourselves, but let's soberly take responsibility for our lives, so that we can fulfill the law of Christ by loving one another, by helping each other out when they need help, by giving people what they need and carrying them alongside them, so that they can be restored and find full strength. Lord Jesus, we all get lost in ourselves. We get lost in what we think is important. We get lost in work and our busyness. Help us to be humble. Help us to help each other, to look out for one another. Help us to think about each other. Lord, take that voice, me, out of our heads, and help us to spend more time thinking about other people and how we can love them and be kind for them and be generous with our lives. Lord, let us be burden bearers, burden sharers. And Lord, I believe that as we do this, you'll knit us together in community stronger and stronger. That this is what will forge us, what looks like a burden will actually become a blessing. I pray, Lord, that you would bless people. Amen. Amen. I'm going to wrap up there. I've already gone longer than I meant to, started rambling. But I really do pray that you have an amazing day and that God blesses you in everything that you have ahead of you. We'll be back here tomorrow at 8 a.m. I'll see you then. Have a fantastic one. God bless. See you tomorrow.